how do we make this transition from good to great, trainer to coach, move away from instructing and telling and move more towards working with people, facilitating their own potential. So what we're going to do today is go through some key kind of components and key resources and tools that we use with our clients to just kind of help navigate through challenging situations and whatnot, with the idea of achieving better outcomes for our clients, which is what personal training is all about. Now, when we look at what defines coaching, obviously there's many different definitions to it, but what we like to define coaching as is the ability to facilitate someone's potential. So what that means is we know that most of our clients have the answers to majority of the obstacles and issues that they face. And what we need to do is make sure that we work with these people using some tools and resources and language and building good relationships to help them commit and navigate their way through these specific situations, rather than giving them a lecture, barraging them with why haven't they done it, and why don't they just need to do this to get the outcomes that they want, and both people getting frustrated, and 9 times out of 10 that just leads to a really bad relationship and most people parting ways with no really good outcomes being achieved. So we're going to avoid that situation by just adopting that coaching mentality and going, right, well, if there's a problem that's presented itself, we know that this client has the solution to that problem. We're just going to help navigate and explore some situations with them, and we're going to guide them along the way and make sure that we use our expertise to go, hey, I think that's a good idea, but maybe you should try this, for example. Now, I know some of you might be like, well, why do I need to do this? Why would I want to adopt this skill and be this coach? Why can't I just be a personal trainer who works with robots and, they just do as I tell them and, everything's kind of good as gold? Well, 99% of the people that we're going to work with aren't robotic. They're not going to just heed our instructions and follow them. They're real people with real lives and real challenges outside of training. And sometimes, their priorities shift and, training starts to slip down, or, some other things get in the way. And we need to be there and have these skills and resources to help this person still work and commit towards their goals. But just maybe take a step back for a little bit, but you guys are still working together. And then when things kind of clear up, or you've kind of gone through some things with them and they've kind of identified that, their goals are actually more important to them than they thought, for example, that they're willing to commit and ready to go. There's a lot of reasons why, we've adopted these coaching skills, into our philosophy, because it helps with retention, it helps build good relationships, it helps get results, and it helps you retain your business. If you look at, again, we talk about it all the time, just from a business perspective, which this isn't really like a business video. It's you have better relationships with a client. They're happy with the service they're getting good results, which happens from having a good relationship and you having a good skill set. They're going to stay. And it's a client gained or a client kept is so much better in terms of resources and time, which is 25 times the resources and time, than a client having to acquire. So there's more to this than just some fluffy kind of conversations and whatnot that we're having with our clients. If your clients like you, if you build a good relationship with them, they will stay. And that's what we want as a business owner and personal trainers. You want to help people. So I think the first place to start with this transition from trainer to coach is how to ask effective questions. Now, when we look at the difference between trainer and coach, trainers are really kind of top-down relationship, where they're kind of giving orders and not really wanting to receive much feedback or input from the client. Where if we look at a coach is bringing that client more in on a horizontal kind of relationship, bringing that person in, giving them responsibility, accepting and acknowledging that their feedback is important. So to do that though, we need to ask great questions and we need to listen. And when we talk about asking questions, what I think is really important is just to think about why people go from a young age of being really curious and asking lots of questions to transitioning to adulthood and being afraid to ask questions, and almost zipping your mouth, because a lot of people are fearful of the answers that they might get when they ask a question. They don't want to come across as feeling stupid. When they ask a question, they're fearful of what other people, think of them. And then a lot of people don't ask questions as well because they think they know enough. They think they know enough about a specific topic or whatnot. And realistically, we don't know what we don't know. So if we're not asking really good questions, we're not expanding our knowledge and challenging ourselves to grow. So with all this talk about questions, now we're going to talk about how to ask great questions, how to ask effective questions, how to ask thought-provoking questions. We've kind of categorized or broken down a 4-step process, which allows you guys to go through certain phases or certain thought processes of how to ask questions and bring up key compelling issues with clients that they may not want to share with you, and you've got to kind of get it out of them. So the first phase is called, or step 1's called investigate. So it's about bringing up or asking questions that explore issues with somebody. Then we go to the next process or the next phase called identify. So it's about a client exploring problems and then identifying a key problem and going, yep, this is exactly what I'm struggling with right now, or the thing that I need to work on right now. Then we go to the next step, which is validate. So as coaches, we need to validate and acknowledge that that person has every right to kind of be frustrated and be in that situation, and it's okay. But we're going to navigate them out of that. We're going to, explore some solutions. And that's what the next phase is. The next phase is called explore. So it's about us getting that client to explore potential solutions to their problem and going, okay, so how can we, kind of get around this issue? What do you think we can do in order to overcome it and move towards what we need to go? So if we look at how we ask questions and we look at how we approach maybe an awkward situation that you've wanted to have with a client, it's like, okay, so how do I ask a question that gets that person to investigate some issues? How do I get them to identify an actual problem, the problem that I want them to explore? Like, what questions do I have to ask to do that? I acknowledge that I have to validate that that person, has that problem and they've shared it with me. And what we're going to do now is explore some potential solutions to overcome these issues. So if we look at it through those 4 key processes, we can come out the other end with really good questions to explore issues with the client. But we also have a really good relationship along the way. We don't have to have this awkward kind of tense situation where both people are frustrated and both people leave frustrated. It's a positive thing. It's about overcoming and problem solving things that get in the way, and that's what happens. But good coaches have these skill sets and look at things through these lenses, so that they can explore these situations and come out the other way with positivity and action. So moving on to some other key resources that have been valuable in the coaching process for our trainers and ourselves for the many years we've been working with clients. We find the REACH model to be a super effective framework to explore issues with a client, just even in a face-to-face setting. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to happen, in some form of formal environment. It can happen in between sets in a session. It can happen as a coaching call if you're an online client, an online coach. But the REACH model is a really good way of having a framework, and working with somebody to create these good relationships, explore situations, and make sure that they come out the other end with some form of positive action and are looking forward to, telling you about it the next time they see you. So we've spoken about effective questioning and thinking about how to ask questions that, are very, non-aggressive and allow someone to feel comfortable to, tell you exactly what their problems are and, go and find a solution. The REACH model is very similar, but it has a very distinct kind of, process from top to bottom. So REACH is an acronym for rapport, explore, action, clarify, and honor. So all of these phases have, all of these specific words have very distinct phases that you go through with a client. So the first one is about rapport. It's about setting a comfortable environment for that person to be honest with you. So that doesn't mean that you have to have some really awkward, cheesy conversation. It's just be genuine about the conversations you have with people and make sure they feel comfortable to have that conversation with you. Don't sit there and say, all right, just sit over in the corner there on that seat in the gym because we're going to talk about this now. It's that's not really building rapport. That's not really setting the environment to allow people to be honest and explore their kind of thoughts and process and problems with you. The next one's explore. So it's about exploring issues. It's about exploring obstacles and things that are getting in the way. So a really easy way to kind of navigate through these phases is how's your training going at the moment? Are you happy with the results you're getting? So, they're going to explore their mind and go, yeah, I'm really happy with, this. And it's okay, so is there anything at the moment that's, not really kind of working out for you? You've identified that is an issue and it's kind of getting in the way of getting the outcomes you want. So then that's provoking them to explore. And it's okay, oh yeah, so I'm really struggling on the weekend to hit my macros, for example. So it's okay, so at the moment, we're really happy with the results we're getting. If we look at one thing that's getting in the way of us getting even better results, is hitting our macros on the weekend. Is that what you're saying? And I was like, yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. So we've clarified that that's what the person is actually saying to you. Because when we look at, language and how people talk and how people interpret that language, we might be thinking something totally different to that client. So we need to make sure that we're clarifying that this is exactly what that person's talking about. This is the problem that they're facing right now, and we're going to explore a way to fix it. Because if we just sit there and don't clarify and we go from explore, action to honor, it's like they could be talking about something totally different. And the next time we catch up, it's like, hey, how'd you go with that thing? Did you do this, this, and that? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I did this because I was talking about that. And then you guys lose a week, working on something that, wasn't really kind of specific to the obstacles and the issues that they had. So you've got to kind of do this process all over again. So making sure we clarify, what is happening is super important. And then the last thing as the coach is honoring what that person said. So we need to honor that that person's identified this issue and they've created this action point, and you're really looking forward to that person doing that, and you're very confident that that person's going to do that task. And then, you can't wait to kind of see them next time and, them tell you all about it. If you think that that person's setting an action point that's maybe a little bit out of their capabilities right now, be honest and say, well, look, I don't really know if that's kind of, I don't think that's going to be that effective right now. Maybe we should work on something like this. Like, even though we have a horizontal relationship where we're bringing your clients in, like, don't think that you can't give your specialty and advice to this person. Sure, you're bringing them in. You want to make sure that they're honest and that they feel comfortable talking to you, but you're still the coach. You've still been hired as a specialist to achieve a task. So if they're going to give you an action point that you think's just like totally out of reach, use your knowledge, use your experience and say, oh, look, I don't know if that's really going to work, but come out with the ability to be able to honor something. And it's like, okay, John, really productive discussion today. I'm very happy that, we've identified this as an issue, and we've picked this action point that we're going to work on over the weekend to help you work with your macros and stuff. And the next time, when I see you next week, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. So that's the process of how we go through a very simple conversation with someone. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. It can be something like we do it in a check-in process, just with some questions for the client. They answer these questions, and it's really taking them through this process. And then when we reply back to them, we reply back to them with the honor. If we think that person's going to achieve the task, if we don't think that person's going to achieve the task yet, we go back and forth on that action point. Make sure we're clear with what that person's talking about, but always come out of that discussion with that ability to honor that person, which is super important. Then we move on to another useful framework or resource that we've had with our clients to provoke action and change. And this is called a motivational interview. So a motivational interview is like an interview style kind of conversation between a client and coach that explores actions and problems that people have, and really the desire to make changes in relation to their goals. So we kind of talk about the desire to change, the desire not to change, how they feel about both of those things. What if we get the goals? What if we don't? Because there's reasons why, like, people are fearful of achieving their goals, and they are fearful of not achieving their goals too. So we need to explore what is the score, or like how important is not achieving their goals to achieving their goals, and getting that person to kind of realize that achieving their goals are a lot more important than they probably thought they were. Because when we look at all of the things that we explored in this motivational interview, we've come out with the information that says you actually want this more than you're presenting right now. So what we're going to do is put together some form of like action. Maybe we need to take a different approach or something like that. But this person's primed for change. They've identified this in the interview. If we go down the other route where this person's kind of presenting themselves with, the desire not to change, and, the desire not to change kind of outweighs the desire to change, it just means that we've set the bar too high. We've set the goal too high. Maybe the situation's changed for that client and we need to take a step back and go, cool. So what are we capable of right now? What do we think we need to do right now? Can we start to sway the desire to change to be greater than the desire not to change? And we kind of go through this process again. But this motivational interview process is a really good way of getting a client to kind of see where they're at right now. A lot of clients kind of lose their way. Like, yes, we have goals. Yes, we work with coaches, but sometimes like the noise of life kind of gets in the way and we get distracted from the things that we are doing for ourselves that we still find important. So this motivational interview gets our clients to look at this and get to visualize themselves achieving the goal. And what I think is really powerful and a useful thing from this motivational interview is actually visualize not achieving the goals and what that would feel like, and whether they'd be happy with that and whether that outweighs achieving the goals right now. So like this can be done. We've done this really effectively in a sit down kind of format with our clients. Obviously really casual. It doesn't have to be this like across the desk kind of environment. And we've also done it very, very effectively in the online space, via some form of like, video consulting format. We use Zoom and stuff, which has been super effective just when you're seeing people fall off the rails a bit. And the last piece of the puzzle that, takes this transition from trainer to coach, bringing this person in a horizontal relationship, trying to empower them with, really productive, solution-based thinking about the obstacles and problems they face, is good goal setting and habit formation. So you guys should be really knowledgeable about goal setting. We talk about it all the time. As business owners, you have to be good at setting goals. We know that people need to know their values. We know that their goals need to align with their values. We know that their goals need to be specific to, whatever task that they want to achieve. We know that it needs to be measurable. We know that it needs to be, attainable and realistic and timely and all of those things. So when it comes to sitting down with your clients and setting goals, you should be able to kind of set these very, very specific goals. Now that we have these goals, what we need to do is start to reverse engineer those. It's like, how do we facilitate this person's ability to operate with vision, to operate with intent on a weekly and daily basis? And this comes down to the formation of habits and how we reinforce those. So we use things like, a non-negotiables checklist. We have a tracker in our check-in, which allows these people to, kind of tick these boxes and go, right, these are the things I set as my tasks, as my non-negotiables. And what it does is reinforces good behavior by, doing things like lighting up a little green box when they tick it, which, green is good and good is what people want to feel. And then they want their coach to give them really positive feedback. So that reinforces behavior because they've done something, good, and someone's told them that that's great. So they're like, cool, I like this feeling. I'm going to do that again. So we need to make sure that there's like a reward at the end, and it doesn't have to be a tangible good. It needs to be feedback. It needs to be something visual. We need something that's reinforcing those behaviors, and knowing what those behaviors are comes from from knowing what the goal is. It's like, how do we know who this person needs to be and the behaviors that they need to have if they don't know what they're working towards? So having the ability to reverse engineer those goals and then going, okay, so to achieve this goal and be this person, you need to do this stuff and you will have these outcomes. So it's that be, do, have mentality. And this comes from having very good goals and being able to reinforce these habits on a weekly basis. And then we use those strategies that we've just spoken about. If these people aren't sticking to these habits and, continuously and doing the non-negotiables to get them where they want to be. So the cycle repeats itself. So hopefully by now you've got a really good understanding of like just how we make this transition from, trainer to coach. There's a lot more to coaching. There's a lot more layers to it, but this is a really good place to start. And there's some really good tools and resources that you guys can use to get better outcomes, have better conversations, and build better relationships with your clients with the goal of getting better outcomes, which is, kind of what we're here to do. That's why we're hired as personal trainers. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more, you can jump onto our website, www.stcfitlearning.com. We've actually got some articles on, coaching and other things. So you guys can kind of navigate your way through that and kind of just pick some pieces of information that pique your interest. If you guys are interested in business development and want to, improve your own personal training business, just take the business scorecard. Just see where your business is at right now. Kind of highlight some key areas that we know make, really good standout personal trainers. It'll highlight some areas, just give you guys some insight onto what you need to fix. If you guys are interested in personal development and want to increase your skill set on being a personal trainer, business, technical skills, those kind of things, just hit the courses section, navigate your way through kind of what we offer just in terms of courses. There are some free resources in there as well, so make sure you go in there and eat up the free resources that we have for you. And yeah, we look forward to delivering you guys another video in the future.